To be introspective or not introspective. Neither are the hallmark of liberation nor the evidence against it. Even in liberation, there is thinking, though contemporaneous with a freedom from the unconscious belief in being the thinker, the subject of thoughts, or the doer of actions. And before you say this is an unrealistic scenario, for that would be a zombie person, I should emphasize that this is a freedom from unconscious belief in being these things, because there can still be a conscious playing along with duality. There can still be cognizing and operating in duality as a means for the maintenance of the form and conditions required to support it. But the emotional reaction to offense does not happen because there is no perception of there being a canvas of self on which to paint insults, not one that's taken to be self. To be insulted from the liberated perspective is like watching someone attempt to paint on the air without a canvas, as the Buddha has reputed to have said. Liberation isn't the end of common sense. It is freedom from unconscious beliefs that cause involuntary convulsions of emotion in the face of insult or prospective injury to the conceptual thinker and its associated form. In liberation, everything is potentially as functional as before, though perhaps more so with a greater ability to call forth energy or leave it in repose on a discretionary basis. The tool of thinking can be used to greater effect when allied with a dispassion that allows for clear seeing and also the retention, conservation, and discretionary deployment of energy that is normally depleted by pointless and emotionally triggering rumination. I watched a commentary on an interview of a billionaire, link in the description, in which he confessed to not being introspective and asserted that the great figures in history were also not introspective. And in a video commentary, not the one I linked in the commentary, but one from Matt Walsh, he made some counterpoints against that idea, citing evidence of introspection on the part of many luminaries throughout history. And he also expressed some concern at the notion of someone with so much power and influence having no introspection. My interpretation of the billionaire's self-description is that of a single-mindedness that precludes a looking back. He only looks forward, and I think he says as much. So his mental timeline is kind of like the old 8-bit Super Mario Brothers game, where Mario can go forward, but not back, not at all. The screen won't even go back. Such is this single-minded man. Whether or not this bobtailed mental timeline that's all forward and no backward augments his emotional intelligence, I cannot discern. But the idea that by looking forward only one is not operating in the past might not necessarily include a recognition that the ideas of the future are constructed from the same elements of the past. Like if you think you're only going forward by only looking forward, you're kidding yourself if you think that you do not touch the past in that endeavor. Because the elements of the past are thought. They're born of impressions in consciousness, the product of experience. The past is made of these elements, and so is the future. They are both nothing but ideas. And as such, they are both agents of lack relative to the perception of absolute truth, ever hemming its perception to being relative to themselves, and therefore different for everyone. So through the lens of conditioning, reality is perceived different for everyone. And when everyone sees a different past and future, you know that none of them are the absolute truth. They're all just versions. And as such, they are all missing this quality of the absolute truth of which I speak, that has the property of destroying desire, destroying that inner void from which so much pathological human behavior arises. So the billionaire speaks of the merits of looking forward only, and I think he is suggesting that he does not waste his energy on past grievance, which does have some merit, but it doesn't mean that he does not operate as a hungry ghost. There's no amount of success that can give him the bounty of the truth, and thus remove the impetus for him to ever seek more or different. From his description, it's hard to know if he, in operating as he describes, is cutting off both personal history and human history, or just one or the other. And also, can he articulate the lessons of his experiences? I would presume he can, and those are from the past. He cannot avoid pulling value from the past into his vision for the future. Presumably, he draws on memories of practical skills he's learned, both physical and mental, and he certainly could have learned the lessons of history, and particularly the most important, in my view, and that is that in the aggregate, people don't change. And therefore, you can expect them to act similarly in similar conditions going forward as they have in the past. In a previous video, I mentioned about the influence of conditions on the expression of consciousness. And I want the listener to consider that the aim of these talks is not to describe reality as the materialist would grasp it. I'm not trying to assert the physical truth of the things I describe, but rather to bring to an end your reaction to the belief of its antithesis being true. For example, the thought experiment I mentioned in a previous video, and others, in which you swap every condition with somebody else, and therefore, in consideration of the full scope of these variables, you cannot judge them because the only non-variable between you, the only non-karmic element in the soup of experience, is the awareness that perceives all conditions. You are that awareness, that observing. But observing is without differentiating qualities, for differentiating qualities are observable, and thus can no more be what's observing them than a hammer can nail itself. And therefore, as Ramana Maharshi said when asked how to treat others, there are no others. He wasn't being solipsistic. He was saying that the very essence of what you are is what he is, that which is aware does not have qualities, but observes them, and therefore cannot be something that differentiates one from another, and that those things that can be differentiated, to the extent that they appear in awareness, cannot be the true identity of what perceives them. In the experiential realization of this is a liberation from the unconscious reaction to the fate of these things, and in that lack of ignorance, there is a stillness that reveals the bounty of the truth to be found in this very moment. It is palpable and has the quality of eclipsing the product of desire, and therefore it destroys desire. The destruction of desire yields the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. The problem for us is that we really like the emotional juice of its opposite, of grievance, of schadenfreude, of rage, envy, hatred, greed, revenge, guilt, shame, spite, and others. They are the fruits of ignorance, the fruits of unconsciousness. And introspection can be absent or present in unconsciousness, or absent or present in liberation. So by saying these things, such as if all the variables were the same, and I don't mean like twins the same, I mean like literally all the things except what's aware of them are the same, then the only thing that's left as a determinant of action is probability, which we know plays a role in creation's unfolding at the quantum level. So I'm not trying to assert the physical truth of the things I describe as if there would be or could be any liberation in sussing out empirically any of these ideas. It doesn't matter whether or not physical reality matches the things I'm describing. The ideas themselves can be thrown away once they have caused you to be the inheritor of a liberated energy body that in the stillness of surrender to the scope, sovereignty, and perfection of divine will expressed in this moment reflects the bounty of the absolute truth. That's all for now.